Welcome to another episode of the Hot Topic Podcast with your host, Patrick Quanch.
And I'd like to introduce to you Chris Martinez. Chris, how are you, brother?
I'm good, Patrick. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it's funny every time I tell people, how many cars we've sold at that one store. It's always a mixed bag. Some people think, "Oh my God, that's amazing." Other people think, "Man, there's no way he did that. There's no way they did that." And I'm like, well, the sad part is we weren't even number one. That was not, we were number 5 in the nation. And actually in new car sales, that put us at number 10 in the nation. So in perspective, right? The number one, they always say, what does it take to go from good to great? And I could tell you it's about 1,000 cars, because the number one dealer in the country sells over 2,000 cars a month, new cars. And the number 2 in the nation was selling a little, right at 1,000 new cars a month. So from good to great, it's about 1,000 cars a month. So it's kind of crazy when you think about that.
Yeah. 1,000 cars a month, man. That's a lot of cars.
It's a lot. Yeah, we had 85 salespeople. We had a new car finance director, used car finance director. We had 12 finance managers. Our service department was big. We had 23 advisors. We had about 100 tech bays. It was a pretty big. We had 315 employees. It was a pretty big organization.
Yeah.
For one store.
And that was down in San Antonio. Is that the store you referenced?
It was in Austin, Texas.
Oh, in Austin. Okay. Yeah, very nice. Nice population. What brand was that? Was that Mercedes-Benz?
It was Toyota.
Toyota.
Yeah,
Wow.
Toyota.
Holy cow. That is in retrospect, Houston has a pretty good presence there with Fred Haas. And I'm sure you're familiar with those guys.
They actually sold 1,001 new cars last month.
Wow.
And they did about 400 used, so 1,400 cars last month. That's a big deal. That's a great job. We almost beat them one time. They sold more new cars than us, but we sold a lot more used.
Mm-hmm.
And if you added them together, we were like a month away from catching them. And actually, we were within a couple of cars. It was tight race. Well, then it was an act of God. And I gotta preface this. It was a bad situation. Things happened. It was a hurricane that happened. And so a lot of cars got wiped out. So Toyota pushed a lot of inventory towards them to help them.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, there was, a lot of cars that got wiped out in that flood. And so they ended up selling 200 more cars that month than they normally do. And I just remember thinking man, we were close. We were so close the whole year. Close. I was thinking, man, we're going to be able to say we're number 1 in Texas. And then that happened, and we couldn't say that.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. We get those one-off hurricanes, floods.
But when you think about that, Houston, right? That's a big market, 8 million people. Austin at the time, when I first moved there, there was 1.5 million in the metro.
Yeah.
Now I think it's a little over 2 million, 2.2, I think, is the last I checked.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly a testament to what you were doing, for sure.
Yeah. It was a team. It was, and believe me, by no means I ever try to take credit for that. I just told the story. I was there. I was, my owner would say I was the store manager. I liked when he said that. He was good. He was my mentor. He's my business partner. We developed the software together. We ended up selling it 3 years ago. So we did a good job with that deal. And then, everywhere I've gone, we've had some big successes. Not to that degree, but right after that Toyota store, I ended up going to an Oklahoma group. Ran 4 stores. It was a Porsche, Mercedes, Nissan, and Infiniti. And when I got there, they were doing 350 cars a month. And we took them to 690 was our best month ever. So almost 700 cars. it was for a town like Tulsa, I think it's 800,000 in the total metro, 400 or 500,000 in the primary market. That for me, I felt like that was a good job, especially for the brands that we had, not very volume driven type brands like Porsche, Mercedes, Infiniti, and then Nissan. I mean, we did pretty good with that one, but 690 cars. I mean, that's in any city, that's a pretty good job, I think. So
Yeah.
but yeah, no, we it's just all about process and putting those things in place.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to have great people. I mean, let's be
people.
honest. Yeah.
Oh yeah, without the people, it's I think I this is what I always tell people. Like, think about the Bulls, right? The Chicago Bulls. What happened to them after that amazing team was dismantled? You ever see the movie The Last Dance or the documentary? That's such a great show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they did everything they could to disassemble that deal was shocking to me. And then look at what happened after the team was gone. They haven't come nearly to the success that they had back then.
I don't even think they've been back to the finals since then. And
Isn't
that was
that
probably
crazy?
98, I think was the last year that they won it. Yeah, I mean, think about it. We're working on now
2026. Yeah.
That's a long time, man. Sounds like my Cowboys. We're never going to get back.
Yeah. Well, they had a great team back in, what year was that the last time they won? It's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It's we hear about it all the time up here in North Texas, man. It's like, Jerry he wants to run it his way. And I can't blame someone that has made himself into a self-made billionaire to think that was all him, but he has to have a little humble pie in knowing that there were a lot of great people around him that
for
pulled
sure.
that off, right? So, but you see it all the time. Egos get in the way, and it halts production. But then you can see, someone like Robert Kraft with the Patriots. He allowed Bill Belichick to run his program, and those guys were good for 20 years. And that's the result of that. So the Cowboys will always be relevant. They'll always be a talking point. And I think as Jerry as long as he's making his billions with his empire, and the football team on the field is halfway decent, but everybody talks about him, I think he's A-okay with that. As a fan, I'm not. I want to see a championship, but it's like, I have, my oldest son's, he's 36. He doesn't remember it. It's like he was born in 89. He was 4 years old the last time they won their championships.
Wow.
Anyway. Yeah, man. Well, that's really cool stuff. Taking a store in Tulsa from 350 units to almost double is very impressive. I mean, obviously your program and your people and things that you do, clearly they work, right? I'm sure you probably had some turnover. You probably had some people that didn't want to come on board with the new process, and that's just typical for everything, right? Everybody gets comfortable, but every in my opinion, and you may differ from this, but every new car salesperson at a decent sized store in a decent market, let's start there, should be selling somewhere between 20 and 25 a month on average. That's roughly one a day. It's a lot to say that, but if you go to work and you hustle, and you're diligent in what you do, and you don't start getting to that 8 or 10 number, then you start getting comfortable. As long as you've got people that are willing to do it, I think most people can sell between 20 and 25 cars a month, in my opinion.
I think it's very doable. I think different brands are a little bit a little bit more challenging. Looking at Porsche, I can't imagine, there's not a lot of high volume type. You're limited on supply. Different luxury brands for sure, you'll have those challenges with. But if you're in, domestic or even import store where you're selling, Hondas, Toyotas, things like that, when I sold cars on the sales floor, I used to sell over 30 cars a month. My best month, I sold 36 and a half cars. And that was, the most money I'd ever made at that time, and thought, man, I'm going to do this forever. I had an exit plan. I thought, when I left CarMax, I thought, I'm going to go sell houses, do real estate. But I had heard about this Toyota store here in San Antonio. And so when I went and found out that they were, as a manager at CarMax, these salespeople were making double what I was making. When I went to go work over there, it was real. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to do this forever. Like, this is a good deal, and then, slowly got sucked back into management. And only because I felt like I went back in time. CarMax had all these process and, really advanced systems. And I go back to the dealership or the traditional side of town, and the people are using worksheets and little pencils and, Sharpies, writing pencils with the Sharpie. And it just was like the wild, wild west. I thought, yeah, this was 2011 or 2009. And so you would have thought, the internet was for sure out way by then. So you would have thought by 2008, 2009, it would have been a little bit more advanced. But yeah, it was wild.
Again, people just get stuck in their process. And, our industry, whether it be on the retail side, like what you're familiar with, or the commercial side, like what I'm familiar with, it's still results driven. It's, and to the point of, I don't care how you get there, you just got to get to this or that or whatever the case is. And there's really not a whole lot of time to stop, reset, set in new processes. Typically, in the dealerships that I've had any interaction with, they generally don't do anything. In fact, bringing on, and what I explain to new people as they come into the industry, and you might be able to back me up on this, is it is the craziest industry. It's very lucrative. You can make a lot of money if you're really diligent and you work really hard, but you're not really going to get trained on how to do that. It is, you've got to figure it out. You've got to do a lot of research. You've got to find within yourself of how to sell vehicles, right? And, there's just sometimes when, whenever I first got in the car business in 91, they wanted you to shadow somebody. Hey, go shadow that person. I want you to do exactly what they do because, they sell, at the time, it was probably 20 cars a month. And, you go off and you try to figure out, and, I'm a very intuitive person. So I'm trying to emulate and duplicate everything that they do. And for months and years, it just didn't work because that system works for them. It doesn't work for you. So, when someone tells you, hey, you need to go do exactly what that person does, they are misguiding you from the word go, because that's just not reality. You've got to figure out your own system, and you've got to figure out what works for you. And that's what I think, in my opinion, that's what a lot of young people getting into the industry, that's what they struggle with. They see the top producer, they might be selling 40 or 50 or 60 a month, whatever the number is, and they want to be that person. Some are willing to put in the effort to do it. Some have the capability of doing it, but very few people can do it. And without some great training, some great literature that you've written, a lot of people probably won't do that. They've got to have some guidance, and which brings me to my next point. You've got some best-selling books out there. Congratulations on that. So,
Thank you.
what got you started writing books?
Well, it's I just finished writing my 11th book. I haven't published that one yet, but I started writing during that time that we were selling that many cars. I said, man, this is such a great story. I really wish I would have had a roadmap or some kind of just baseline foundation, like a framework of what that looks like to get to the level we got to. And so I started writing it out, and I started writing it out before we even hit 1,000 cars. Like, we hadn't even hit 1,000 cars yet. Like, I just knew we were going to. We had so much momentum behind us that it was just a foregone conclusion that we were going to hit it, right? And so when I wrote the book, I wrote down everything what it really took, process wise, all of it. And so I wrote it. And when I was writing it, I said, there's really another book here, because at the end of the day, you got to teach your salespeople. It's all the same framework. It's repeatable. It's scalable. It's pretty consistent. The things that we talk about, um, you know, identifying, types of personalities, things like that. And so I ended up writing two at the same time. Um, the second one was Drive to 30. And so ever since that point, I felt like in that first one I wrote was 2015 or 16, I think. And I've probably written one every year since then now, it seems like. One of the books that I wrote that I just had fun with was I was reading to my son, when he was younger. That was, children's books. And so one of the books I wrote was a children's book. And that's probably one of the ones that I like the most, because I got somebody to illustrate all of the pages, and it includes my whole family. And what's funny about that one is, for years I'd get up in front of meetings and I'd say, hey, look, we're here on Saturday. We know that nobody's said, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a salesperson, like a car salesperson. No one says that. And so it was part of my leading into trying to get them motivated and how, let's make some money and let's have fun. But then when I was reading to my son, I said, you know what, I'm just going to write that book. I mean, wouldn't that be funny? And so I asked my son, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said car salesperson. And coincidentally, and so then I just wrote the book, and it was just, when I grow up, I want to be a car salesperson. So that's probably one of my more favorite ones, and it's a short little children's book. It kind of gives principles of why people want to be in the car business.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. And the fact that you brought your whole family into the book, that's really cool. So yeah, kind of a family legacy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's rare for someone to say, hey, I want to grow up and I want to sell cars. We come into, and I tell people all the time, we really come into this industry by accident. When I first got into the industry, funny story. I was young. I had just gotten laid off. What was Lockheed now, but it was General Dynamics back in the day. We were building F-16s, and they had a huge layoff, and I didn't have any idea what I wanted to go do. And a short time before that, we had bought a brand new car, and I really thought that I just got hosed on this deal. Like, I just felt like, man, I just got worked over. And I had told my wife, I was like, look, I'm gonna go get into car sales. And why would you want to do that? And I said, well, one, I need to know the industry, because I feel like, we didn't get a really good deal, and that's never going to happen to me again. So I got in the car business, and then, after a few months of trying to figure things out, and over some time, I figured out, no, it wasn't that bad of a deal. This was in 90, 91, somewhere in there. The margins weren't there like they are, or were there for a while. As car prices go up, the margins obviously are a little bit better, but in 91, there was no margins to be had. So the good news was that I learned that I didn't necessarily get the south end of a deal. And even better news, it just kind of started a career that I had no idea that I was going to get into, and especially on the commercial side. Nobody ever says, I want to go sell trash trucks. Nobody ever says that, right? It's just where you end up, and it's very lucrative, and you build lifelong relationships just like you do in the car business. It's just it's a good industry. It's been good to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, my twin brother, when I first moved back to Las Vegas, I actually graduated high school in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And I moved up there because my uncle did construction. And so I was initially moving up there to go work for my uncle. And when I landed there, my brother had already been living there. He was a property manager at an apartment place. And I told him, man, I really don't want to do construction, but I mean, I know it pays decent, and I just don't want to do it. And he was like, well, look, why don't you go to this place that they've been trying to recruit me, and it's called CarMax. And I said, what, the lip balm company? He said, no, they sell cars, but you should go check it out. And just tell them I sent you and that they were trying to recruit me. And so I went in his place and I said, hey guys, my name's Chris Martinez. You guys, we're trying to recruit my twin brother, but I'm the next best thing and you guys need to hire me. And sure enough, they ended up hiring me. But, had I not made that, transition, I would have, I found so much more um, success than I ever thought I would or could in the automotive business. And doing this for 23 years now, it saved my life.
Yeah. That's a crazy story, man. Landing in a city that you're familiar with, obviously, but landing there going, man, I really don't want to carry a hammer and a tape measure all day long. That's not what I want to do. And then going off and starting a great career in the car business. That's an awesome story. Here's a question for you. What does it take to get a dealership to 1,000 cars a month? What's the one thing that every dealership has to have, in your opinion?
I think it really comes down to discipline, the consistency. Like, you have to be consistent and disciplined in those daily actions. And I think Simon Sinek said it about brushing your teeth, right? You don't know, if you stop brushing your teeth, at some point you're gonna have rotten teeth, right? But if you brush them every day, you just know the outcome, right? And same thing like going to the gym. Day one you go to the gym, you're not gonna be in shape, but day 50 you might be if you keep going. So that's kind of some of the daily disciplines. It's not necessarily like an immediate gratification, but if you're in there putting in the basic fundamentals day in, day out, at some point everything just kind of works together and it happens. For me, that was really what we did. It was a bunch of those little things that, making sure your sales team are active on the phones and actually doing work when there is downtime. The store we were at, I mean, if you drove over it on had an overpass over it. So if you drove past it on the overpass, you wouldn't see it. Like if you drove right next to it, you wouldn't. It was down below, so you wouldn't even see it. So you had to do outreach. You had to pick up the phone. You had to do those types of things. And so, one of the first things that we did early on was how do we get the data out of the CRM or the DMS so that we can reach out to our customers? And so, we just stuck to accountability and making sure our team was, stayed focused every minute we were there, and it worked out.
Yeah. And that's the tough part, right? Is making sure, because everybody wants to find an excuse as to why they can't make those 20 follow-up phone calls or 30 or whatever the number is, right? Everybody wants to find that excuse, and they always want to try to find something else to do during that time. But if, like you said, if they can just stay diligent and understand that it's a numbers game, it's purely a numbers game. The more people you talk to, the more opportunities you get. The more opportunities you get, the more sales that you have the opportunity to close. And that's the biggest part is, getting someone on the phone, getting someone at the dealership, getting someone at your desk, into the back office. It's just a process. And a lot of people want to give up because it's not that instant gratification. Um, of, you talk to 10 people, you're probably going to get hung up on 10 times, most likely. Right?
For sure.
Yeah, and it may take 100 calls to get one. It may take 200 calls to get one. But the law of averages, if you just consistently keep doing it, yeah, you'll increase your opportunity. The way I explain truck sales is like it's like fishing. If you're gonna stand in a boat and not put a line in the water, that's essentially what you're doing if you're not trying. But the more times you put the line in the water, the more opportunities you get. Eventually, you'll find the fish, right? Or the fish will find you. One or the other. Something's going to come together. You just have to be prepared when that time comes. And I think a lot of people they don't really get that, and I think that's why you see a lot of turnover early, right? Because they're not allowing that process to happen. And just know it takes years. I mean, it
Oh,
took
yeah.
me however many years. I mean, we're still evolving, right? You're still learning. You're trying new things. For us, it was more outbound door knocking. You go out there and knock on doors to businesses and companies and trying to get back to a decision maker. That's the
Yeah.
tough part. And one of the things that I incorporated, I found that when you walk up to a door with a little binder and some business cards and you look like a salesperson, odds are that you're going to get told, I don't care what it is that you want to talk about, you're selling, we're not interested. Hell, I can be giving away $1,000 to every place that would accept me. They wouldn't want to have anything to do with it because of the stigma of a person walking into their business. So I flipped the narrative. I would go in, instead of trying to sell, I would go in and say, I need your help. So immediately it drops everybody's um, barrier down a little bit. And they're like, what do you need help with? And I would tell them, hey, look, I buy trucks. I see you have some out there. I don't know if you're interested in selling them, but I'd like to take a look and see. Maybe I can give you a number and you can give it to the person that's in charge of your fleet. Well, almost 100% of the time, nobody knew what to do with that information. So they would send me back in the back of the office and go, hey, go back there and talk to Chuck. He's the guy that really handles that. Great. I go back there and talk to Chuck. Well, what did I do? I got to the decision maker just in a different way. And it opened so many doors for me. And, once I got back there and I started appraising their used trucks, everybody's curious as to what their current vehicle's worth, right? Nobody ever says, no, I don't want to know what my car's worth. Well, of course you do. Everybody wants to know. But once I started kind of incorporating the act of helping, and I'm here to help, not sell, it really kind of propelled my career. And really, retail people can do the same thing. Retail people, they're there to help. They really are. And if they kind of present themselves in that way, that they'll sell a lot more cars than someone that's just there to try to sell somebody.
Yeah, it starts becoming more relational and less transactional when you do it that way. So yeah, I know exactly that's always been my philosophy and how I feel like when I sold cars, it was more like getting to know the person and really trying to make a friend. And when you do that, I used to have one of my finance guys used to make fun of me if I couldn't close a deal, and he'd say, "Oh, there goes another friend." It was funny.
That's true, though, right? Because we do want to make friends. And, that's what a lot of people don't understand is car people, um, whether you sell retail or commercial, we have this stigma about us that, we can't be trusted. We don't work very hard. What people really don't understand, how much a salesperson goes through to take care of their customer. It is, and I'm going
But
to tell you, oh my gosh, yes. It's most people, right? You have a customer that has a car in service. They'll go back there and check on it. They'll go back there to try to figure out what it's going to take to help their customer get back into their car. And that's what a lot of people really don't understand about a salesperson is uh, not only the customer service aspect of what we do, but the amount of training that we need to go through, testing, the amount of paperwork it takes, the amount of follow-up it takes to be able to get a car deal done. A lot of people don't see it because you can't see it, really. It's all on the backside, and we really don't want the customer. We don't want the customer seeing how the sausage is made, right? They don't care. They just want the sausage. But when you boil it all down and you peel the layers back, and someone that's having a rough month and they haven't sold anything in 10 days or so, but they're there every day and they're still churning away and they're still helping their customers. And it goes, a lot of people think, well, they make money. No, they don't. If they're
no,
not selling anything, they don't make any money. And a lot of people, I'm going to tell you, as a general rule, most people are very sympathetic about that. They do care. There's a small percentage they don't care. It doesn't matter to them because to you, you're just a pawn and you're just in the way of them trying to make a transaction. But I'm going to tell you that an overwhelming majority, if not 100% of the people, truly care about their customers. And that's the one thing I would tell the average consumer out there. Your salesperson truly cares about you. They really do.
100%. You know, it's funny you bring up that that story about 10 cars. When salespeople, I remember one time, uh, it was I didn't sell a car for 10 days, and I remember thinking, man, oh my God, like what is wrong with me? Like something's wrong. So then I saw one of the guys that was, lighting the board up, and I go up to him and I go, look, I just want to shadow you. Let me shadow you. I'm clearly doing something wrong. And so I started shadowing him, and I was like, man, this guy's terrible. I'm not doing anything wrong. So I went back to the sales floor and grabbed some more lists and just kept making phone calls, and my pipeline came through, and turned around, and on the 11th day a hat trick, the 12th day a hat trick. That month I ended up with 22 and a half cars, and it was a big month. So it was scary. Don't get me wrong, but I pulled it out. So it was good.
Jeez. And you took half the month off, essentially. Really? You took 10 days and didn't sell anything. That's a long time in a car salesman's world.
Oh, yeah, there was something. I felt like, there was something wrong. I was like, what is going on? But in reality, what happened is, my pipeline, it was just coming together. And, especially after you have like a big month. I remember, my biggest month ever, 36 and a half cars. That last week I sold 16 and a half cars. And I just didn't have any pipeline after that. I was like, man, but I didn't make any calls during that week because I sold so many cars. And so then the next week I had to be on the phones again. I had to make sure that I was getting all of those appointments in, because most of the time, one of my deals the majority of them were appointments, because I very much lived on the phone and internet and trying to make sure these customers came in. And so yeah, it was a scary time, but it's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to keep chipping away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but to your point, that last week when you're busting 16 cars, what a lot of people don't understand, you're riding the roller coaster at that point, because you're not making those calls, you're not making those, introductions, or you're not attending your network meetings or whatever you're doing that week, because you're so focused on selling those cars and getting them delivered, that you're right, your pipeline dried up. Now you've got to restart the pipeline, where I think AI is really going to be able to help smooth out those peaks and valleys, really, because you can continue to market even when you're busy. I mean, with even on social media, you can set up posts. I mean, you can make all your posts at 6 o'clock in the morning. You can have them timed out to go out at a certain time, and that keeps you relevant and things of that nature. Now, there's still a big proponent to that of our customers still want the real interaction. They still want to hear the real me. They want to interact with me. But if at the very least you've got some AI that's influxed into your business, you can keep right on rolling. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where I see it going.
That's why I built the software I built, because I realized quickly how impactful AI had been, especially with OpenAI's ChatGPT, and I can't run my business without it today. And now what we do for dealers now with the voice agents, and being able to make calls and take inbound calls with agents. I mean, it's next level now. I mean, I know for a fact I can generate a quick sequence of follow up, and I know how many people are going to come in as a result of that sequence. And it's pretty amazing when you put all those things together and see that this email agent, an SMS agent, and a voice agent, a multi-channel approach where you can send out all of these communications and guarantee you're going to get appointments back to your store. And it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. And again,
that heavy lift, a follow-up that nobody wants to do and nobody does.
Yeah.
Anymore.
Why would a dealer, given that information, why would a dealer be resistant to that software? I mean, it just makes sense.
Well, like I told you earlier, I think some people just don't believe it. You know, they think you're selling snake oil, and you're looking at them like, no, this is a real deal. You know, like I literally just had a conversation with someone that, you know, I told him how many cars we sold, and he was like, "There's no way," you know, and I'm like, "Yeah, I could see it's hard to believe. I mean, because it is a lot. Don't get me wrong. I mean, our best Saturday, we sold 110 cars on a Saturday, and when I looked at the end of that day, right, you know, bell to bell, you know, looking at the amount of people we had to engage with and talk to, and we, you know, I remember it was only on 8 acres too. It was a small lot. We had an overflow lot. I had to go and rent a lot. I had to convince the owners, like, hey, look, this makes sense at this time. Let's go get an overflow lot. We're getting more inventory. We have no more place to put them. I either turn the inventory away or we grow. We were at a breaking point today. We either, you know, scale back or keep moving. And so convinced them to get it. We went and found the location 5 minutes down the street, and I could put another 800 cars on that lot, which was pretty amazing. But you know, it's those little things that you look at, you know, and when people tell me that they look at me and they say they don't believe it, it's harder to convince people that just you tell them the sky's blue and they still look at it and say, well, it's not that blue. That's the only real reason why I think why people don't want to move forward, because or they think that there's something secret in what I do that, you know, it won't work for them. You know, I really don't know why they wouldn't want to do it. I think it's a complete game changer. I think that every industry, every business should have it, at least some type of automation. And the system that we use, I mean, you know, if I ever run a store again, it will have it 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of salespeople sometimes can be the easiest sell, and sometimes they can be the most skeptical, especially if they haven't seen it. So if you go to a store and the most they've ever done in a month, let's say it's, I don't know, 300, and you go, I can take you from 300 to 1,000. The first thing they're going to say is, there's no way. We're in the wrong market. There's no way. I don't have enough people, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're right. There are a lot of hurdles that you're going to have to get past, but you grow into them. It's like, I'm not asking you to stock another 1,000 cars today. However, it becomes a vortex. The more you sell, the more you need, the more you need, the more you sell. And that's kind of how it gets going. But you're right. You know, even the most savvy veterans in our industry, if they don't believe that they can do it, they'll come up with every reason as to why it can't happen.
Right. And that's happened to me everywhere I've gone. Every store I've been to, they look at it and I'm like, man, I just showed you. I did this, I did that. And, you know, I've written all these books, and they still look at me like I'm selling them snake oil. And it's funny because a lot of those people end up becoming my friends and tell me later, you know, I thought you're full of crap, Chris. You know, now I believe it. Like you are telling the truth.
Yeah.
It takes them a little bit. It's a little, you know, it's a little bit of a shock initially, because they think there's no way. They come around at the end. And even the ones that, you know, when I start telling them what we're going to start doing, and they leave me because they think, oh, I don't want to do all that. That's just too much work. And I'm like, well, it's going to take work. I mean, that's where a lot of misconceptions where people believe on AI, right? They think it's going to sell the car for them, deliver it, you know, type up the paperwork for them. I mean, they think it's going to just do everything for them. But at the end of the day, you still have to do work. Like the AI is going to do its job. It's going to engage customers, create appointments for you. But if you don't know how to sell cars, you don't have a process, you don't know how to get that handoff, the AI is not going to do anything for you. It's going to re-engage a bunch of people, and then you're going to look at me and say, hey, look, I didn't sell any cars. And I'm going to look back at you and say, well, let's look at why. And then we look through their process, and there's definitely some